Hello, and welcome to the Creative Life Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Qureshi, but you can call me Q. Today, I have a very, very special guest. I'm a little too excited about this because, one, we've been trying to do this for a long time, several months actually, and one thing after another has come up. So we're finally here. But also, I'm a fan, and so I'm gonna do my best not to be obnoxious about it, but I'm so stoked that you're here. Welcome to Curtis Roush. How are you, sir?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me.
Good. Coming to us from the outskirts of Austin, Texas. You are the founder of the Bright Light Social Hour, which is one of my favorite bands. And you're not just a musician, you are a consummate musician, in my humble opinion. You're also a producer. I mean, you do a lot of things in and around the music industry. You have a studio, a recording studio,
hmm
and so you do a lot of work for other artists in the area, and you collaborate with a lot of cool people. So I am super excited to talk to you and to share your work with my vast listening audience.
It's funny. I was talking to Walker Lukens a bit on the way over to the band studio this morning, and he had a big theft last week. They lost like 40 instruments or something from his recording studio. It's on the local news and everything. And I was checking in on him. I was like, "Hey, what do you need this week? Like how you holding up?" And he noted, "I didn't expect to become a private investigator as part of like the indie rock lifestyle," and things like that have become kind of a running joke. It's like to just be around in music these days, you have to have like dozens of jobs. You have to learn every new app. You have to become a marketer. You have to
Yep.
become a private investigator to get your 40 guitars back. And you have to like learn how to produce records if you want to make a lot of records. So you kind of have to do a little bit of everything.
So you learned all of this on your like you're self-taught. Like you basically just decided to be an amazing musician at some point in the last
Yeah.
25 years and then decided, oh, I guess I'll make my own records and produce music for myself and other people. Is that how this went down?
I had a big shift. Like I was always like a big activities kid. Like I was talking about this with like my mom yesterday. Like my wife Mia and I, who's in the band, also we live with my folks out in Wimberley on this kind of like family compound thing where we have a big garden and a barn, and my sister and my nephew are out there with us now too. And we were talking about we went to kickboxing like a few days ago. I tried kickboxing and I loved it and it was awesome. And I recalled that like when I was a kid until about 13, I was in scouts and Boy Scouts and
Mm.
Taekwondo, like 3 nights of the week, 4 nights of the week, something like that, like obsessively just kind of taking part in these kind of like little group activities. And then there's something like 13 happened, and I just got really into music and really into the guitar, all kinds of guitar. I like really loved like classic rock and metal. All of a sudden, I was more of like an R&B and pop music kid, just like 90s R&B. It was like it's great
Oh
music. It was
yeah.
really good, and it's kind of what I just sort of grew up on until I had this like teenage moment of just like kind of switching my personality, just totally redirected around specifically the guitar for a while. But then everything kind of spread out from there. A few years later after that, I would kind of like get more into singing. And if I was trying in and out of different bands, trying to just kind of get things to work. And Jackie, my bandmate, we met in college, my senior year of college, his sophomore year. So at that point, I'd already kind of been doodling with music for 8 years or something, but like getting a little guitar lessons early on. I did like a year of audio engineering classes at ACC. I've had like some training here and there to just kind of like develop hone skills and stuff, but most of it's just like logging the hours, just doing it obsessively
Yeah.
like most days.
Yeah. I hear this like pretty much this is thing that I hear from anyone who has any kind of mastery, right? Over, especially in the creative realm, which is just, there's this whole aspect that is incredibly unsexy that nobody wants to talk about. And that is just logging the hours. It's showing up every day. It's pushing yourself a little bit further. It's honing the skills. It's all this stuff that it's not, you see people that are really good, like you see you on stage. And I mean, you are amazing. I'm going to keep saying it, but you don't see everything that went into that, all those years, all those days. And, you could have been fucking off. You could have been like, I'm just going to go fishing today or whatever. I don't know if you fish, but like, but the fact that you made the time, you made it a priority. You're the one that had to say, this is going to be a priority in my life. And I'm going to keep doing it, even though it's not always the funnest thing. I mean, it is fun, but it takes work.
Yeah. And is mostly, not financially viable for most people. It's like
Yeah.
the amount of money that's around in the independent music industry is like feels like at an all-time low. So it's to get out there and just keep doing it, you have to absolutely be obsessed with it. Otherwise, you might as well just do it for fun.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that you can tell me that your folks were supportive of this, because a lot of parents aren't. As you said, it's not usually a financially viable path. So a lot of
Yeah.
parents are like, yeah, you can do that, but you're also going to accounting school.
Yeah, there was a little bit of that earlier on. There was an expectation, and both like I had the desire to go to college, and I ended up going to like this liberal arts college in Georgetown, Southwestern University, very
I love that
small.
school.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really charming. It's got like a very nice campus. The faculty are elite teachers. It's very teaching
Hmm.
oriented and very reading oriented. And the student body is mostly like affluent Texans, but the weirder ones, kind of, like
Yeah.
the it's got kind of an alt character to it. At least it did for many many years. I haven't been up there much lately, and I think that environment was helpful to foster like some intellectual curiosity, being rigorous about music. I think comes from having a little bit of an academic background, but really like I knew as I was doing it that I didn't want to live like a life devoted to, say, political science, which is like what I was studying. And in a couple years that followed that, my parents were like, and family in general were just, happy that I got like a degree. They're like, that's great. And it's kind of like checked a box. And I did a couple years where I did some audio engineering work and just like waiting tables in Austin, and Jack and I were like playing with the lineup of the band. And at one point we just seemed like we were going to be around for a while, so we both entered into different master's programs at UT. And I studied media studies in the radio, television, film department. Jack studied Spanish linguistics. And then by
Hmm.
the end of that, we had it. We were done. We were traumatized by reading too much, theorizing too much.
Yeah.
Just it felt like very much like we got into a realm of busy work that really made our creative drive emerge stronger. And so we kind of bolted out of school into like touring and making records as much as we possibly could. And I think because we'd gotten a decent education behind us, but like both sides of our families have always been like really supportive, of us having all these ups and downs. Some years are really good and some years are really bad. Or not bad, but
Yeah.
like successful and not successful.
And then, so that was around, was that like 2008? When did you release your first
Yeah,
album?
our first record was 2010.
2010. Okay. Yeah. So that's, yeah, it's 25 years. That's a long ass time to be doing this. Does it seem like a long ass time? Does it seem like it's been 25 years?
Yeah, yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
It's like a um I love it. but there, it comes at some costs. Like, I think through the period right after grad school, there was like a 9-year stretch where we toured as much as we possibly could, probably 200 dates a year, most years. And I think we like kind of ground ourselves down a little bit in some ways that's like you don't entirely move on from. You get like anxieties or trouble sleeping, or like depression can enter your life in different ways. And some of us in the band struggle with like ADHD or that kind of thing.
Yep.
I think is exacerbated a lot by those crazy hours and like a decade of like sleepless nights. But we have like a more balanced touring home lifestyle now. We play like maybe 60 dates or something a year.
Yeah.
And that we're like we're actually, I think, quite a bit like healthier than just like mentally, physically, than we were like as younger men in some ways. But anyway,
Yeah.
kind of
I
by the
mean,
way.
look, I think we've all been, you're in your 40s, I think now, right? I think we've
Yeah,
all
I'm
been
41.
through that
Yeah.
little journey. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, you get to that point in your life where you're like, okay, it's time for a little retro. Let's see where we've been, how long it's, how have we got here? And, and you start slowing down and you hopefully get a little wiser, and then you start making really good choices for yourself. And I mean, there's no point in kicking yourself, for not having figured all that out earlier, because that's what youth is for, frankly. Like, it's for destroying your body and mind. And then you get a clue at some point, and then you're like, okay, well, let's try to sustain this as long as possible, because I don't want to
Hmm.
die when I'm 50. Right.
Sure, sure.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Plenty of examples of our foremothers and forefathers from that,
For sure. And it is a tough industry, right? Like, I
Hmm.
know you
Yeah.
guys are very supportive of like the Simmons Foundation and
Sure.
organizations that provide support for musicians, especially local musicians who don't have that kind of necessary support. Because it is hard to be a working musician. And you guys, even though you have a pretty good setup, especially right now, you still work hella hard. And I don't know if people recognize that. I don't know if people understand what goes into that lifestyle. So maybe tell, the listening audience, and I'm coming at this from the perspective of people who want to be creative, but I think these ideas, like the industries, music, publishing, television, film, are all kind of breaking down, right? People are like going much more into the indie realm, which isn't like you're never going to become a gazillionaire. You're never going to, maybe be on the cover of Spin, but are you able to sustain yourself? How did you make that choice? How did you arrive at that place where you're like, I have these abilities, I have this skill, I have this passion for this thing. Here are my possibilities. Here's how I can live a life with that. And this is what I'm going to do. You know what I mean? Or was that like a really long, complicated question?
It is, but in a good way. Um,
Okay, good.
I feel like there was one sort of acute jumping off point that's a bit just arbitrary, where I was out on the road in early 2011, and the restaurant I was working at back in Austin flooded in what seemed to most of the staff to be like blatant insurance fraud. The restaurant's no longer there. And so like my job just instantly evaporated while we were on tour. And I think I was maybe the last person with like like a retail or service job or something at that point. And that we kind of, what we did to make it work for a long time was, well, I think my advice to creatives is try to make it take off with the trajectory of like what you're like bringing in, like if a certain standard of living, or like a certain amount of income or something you need to bring in, like spend some time like I think really developing that in your art, so it can be kind of sustainable, like, and not have to be like 1 month is good, 1 month is bad, one month is good. I guess, I don't know, maybe that's a roundabout way of saying like focusing on the business side, but that's not really how I feel, and it's kind of sort of boring, but important a little bit.
That's cool.
Uh,
I mean, you
I,
don't
I
have to have a perfect little answer for that, but I'm
sure.
curious about that journey, or at
Yeah.
least the evolution of, when you started. Like when you started out of grad school, did you guys have this like vision that you were going to be the next whatever? Or was that commitment to having this kind of sustainable long-term working musician lifestyle from the get-go?
We wanted to be a full-time touring recording rock band. You know,
Okay.
like I don't think there was all that much immediate expectation that like we would become like a pop band or anything like that, but we just wanted to be working all the time. And like if
Mm,
we were like in the club enough for us, you know. So I think it was more like it started from just the thirst or the hunger or the drive to do it. Just became like essential, really, you know. Like we are
yeah.
just very done with college and like needing to try it. You know, there was like the window where I had a good band
Mm,
partner and we had good writing chemistry and communication. We're still just dear friends, you know, and that's what one of the best things about the band is you can cultivate like really beautiful lifelong friendships. You can also cultivate like really intense lifelong grievances with
yeah.
there's a really for many bands, you know, including us from time to time. There's a variety of band members and relationships you have with people, and some of them are healthier than others. You know, um, but Jackie and I've had it pretty good. You know, we've just like
Yeah.
been dear friends and backing each other up the whole time. Um, and we just saw like a window of like we were both, you know, done with school around the same time, where it was like this is the time to go all the way. You know, although I think anytime I really hesitate to make it so much about the window because that kind of implies that there's like a little bit of like, you know, get it while you're young or something. But I think most artists can enter into a world of art at any time in their life. And I think that's really unique about artists that, you know, it just isn't the same for like an athlete, for example, where it's just like you're kind of term limited by your body in a way that like creative workers can go very, very deep into their years and have profound works, you know, of any
Yeah.
media. That's one of the it's also how to keep going is just sometimes if I feel like what's it all mean, what's it all for right now, like I just get excited about like, well, it's for the next record. Like I'm really excited to make another record. I'm always excited to make another record, like, and then the record after that. It's like, you know, like an 18-month obsession or something, and that works that works well for my brain, you know.
You have a process. You have a creative process. You have a flow, um, and you're just lucky enough to have been able to build the life that facilitates that. I mean, I'm 50. I'll be 51 next month, and I came from a very low socioeconomic background. I had a lot of stuff that I had to deal with in my life. I ended up, finding stability, but I had kids. Like I had this whole life where I didn't get to follow those creative impulses. And I just started working as a novelist. Like I'm almost done with my first novel,
Oh,
but
beautiful.
that only started in my 50s. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I'm a big believer that that window can happen anytime. But your job as a person who has that passion for creativity is to keep your eye open for that opportunity
Hmm.
because it will come along at some point. You just don't necessarily get to control it, but you do get to make the choice and say, okay, I'm going to
Yeah.
take this. I'm going to grab it
Yeah.
and I'm going to run as far as I can.
Yeah, I've been thinking lately, like, I think making albums is really quite close to being a novelist, like media
Mm-hmm.
wise. You know, it's like I think there's similar length projects for a lot of folks. You know, you can do them like faster or shorter. Obviously, like there's a huge spectrum, but you set out to make like a great work, you know, or like a significant statement of some kind. Um,
Yeah.
that's like the length is part of the art itself. You know, it's like it needs a novel needs to be long, a certain length. An album needs to be a certain length to have that impact. You know, to be more than
Yeah.
a song, more than a story. You know.
Yeah. I was talking to Nelson
Hmm.
Aguilar. He was on the podcast, and we were having this conversation about how important the album is as an art form.
Hmm.
Because right now, or in the last couple decades, with digital and everything, people are just focused a lot on singles.
Sure.
And and to me, And like the Bright Light Social Hour is a perfect example of this, because your catalog, when you step back and you look at all of your albums, they are, each one is like a snapshot of a point in time. It tells a story of what was going on in your lives, the things that you know were living through, the relationships that you were having, and then
Mhm.
you put that out into the world, and then you go on to the next one. But and you can see this evolution of the band. You can see an evolution in style, in storytelling, in experience, and it's such a cool thing. I mean, I
I'm
adore
glad that's
that.
apparent to you. That's cool.
Yeah. Like I said, I might be a fan, so I do pay a little bit more attention than many people do. But
Sure, that I appreciate
I
that.
love that. I love that. I think it's so important because to me, that's, I guess it depends on why you value music.
Hmm.
And I don't just value it for entertainment or because it sounds nice. I
Hmm.
really value it as a form of art, as a form of expression, and as a form of storytelling. And
Sure.
so when I see a musician or a group of musicians who are committed to that, right, as their medium,
Hmm.
I just adore it, right? Plus, you get the pleasure of listening to the music, which is
Yeah.
always fun. But I love what goes into building that up.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about your first album, which is like shockingly good for a debut. Like it is an amazing album. I guess some bangers on there. It is a good fucking album.
Thanks.
Tell me about the process of how you pulled that together, because y'all were really young too, but it still sounds great.
Yeah, I think we had a few years to draw from though at that point. So, Jack and I started playing 2004. The band was kind of on again, off again, and had different members in different lineups. But sometimes we'd write a song, and then maybe we would take one part of it that was the best part, and it would like show up later in another song because we didn't release a lot of music. We were just like playing once a month. We're just like a local band that played live. And so we'd kind of harvest our like the best of our own material a little bit over time, where by the time we got to like making a full record, a lot of the songs had a lot of craft. And I think there was especially like a 2-year period where it was really the four members at that point with AJ and Joe that we had been playing those songs out, and we had started playing a lot. And so we not only just got much better as players because we were just like we probably went from playing once a month to playing like 3 or 4 times. We're just like different things around town wherever we could get it. And we got good at playing the songs and just and honed them. So we could just go into the studio with a good producer, and we like saved a little bit. We started saving money from playing out, and we just finally had enough for like a few weeks at a good studio in Austin with a good producer and Danny Reich, who's still in the industry working and is doing incredible things too. And it was like this we were the summer of 2000, I guess the summer of 2010. Yeah.
What was the reception initially?
It was just at a point where we were kind of making a jump locally from selling like 200 tickets to, 4 to
Hmm.
600 tickets. So we had like a really big album release show. We started playing like ACLs, local festivals and stuff like that. And it also had this fortunate timing with the Austin Music Awards. I don't know if they still happen during South by, but the Austin Music Awards kind of happens during South by, and we got a whole bunch of them. We got like best album and best band of the year and that kind of stuff. And it became Austin has such a good kind of musical brand to other cities that was like pretty compelling for us starting
Hmm.
to tour. Is like, oh, this award-winning Austin band. If you're from a town like if you're in like Gainesville, Florida or something, you're like, oh, cool. I've heard Austin music scene's like very good. There's Austin City Limits. Like it has like a real international visibility that way. So we kind of like led with that as as we started touring. It was like, hey, we got stuff going on back at home, this music town, so try out our band and we'll come back a couple times and try to build the scene, but it's really how we
Yeah.
started touring.
And you have a pretty, like at this point, I would say you have a pretty loyal following nationally. It may not be like a gazillion people, but I think there are people in a lot of cities that know who you are and that come out for your shows and they look forward to your tour every time you come around. And I mean, that's hard won. It is not an easy thing because you actually have to go be there and let people see you, and it takes a lot of time and energy. So, I mean, just going back to how much goes into building that kind of, you don't have this giant record label that's out there with a PR team that's putting you in front of people all over the world or all over the country. You actually have to
Hmm.
go out there and put yourself in front of those people. Or, you may do your own PR, you may have a smaller PR
Yeah,
team, but it's not like the big industry push. And so what you have I think is
yeah,
probably solid and pretty hard won. It's not like just the latest thing, people latched onto it and then they forgot about it.
yeah. Yeah, with the help of Jack's brother Alex, who passed in 2015, and he's like a
Yeah.
big part of the band's story, and people who know the band know about Alex. And uh, he was really instrumental in kind of that self-management, self-promoting, especially early on. We've had like a number of different record label partners and worked with different marketing firms and occasionally had like a label do a big push, in kind of indie rock terms. But the heart and soul of the band has always just been oriented around like getting up and just doing it ourselves, like learning the tasks, sending the emails, and just doing it. It can take away a little bit from creative time, but if you're rigorous and have some help and like make a spreadsheet or something, it's like it can go a long way. People will rarely work as hard for your art as you will, and you can have the elite marketing and PR and record label partners, and it may not still be sustainable. There's definitely been like an arc to our career, and it's had different kind of commercial points where we're probably the band is like a maybe a smaller band now than we were at our like at different peaks of our career, like in maybe like the mid 2000s of our touring career at least, or recording career too, because there's a little bit more of the recording industry just like hanging on by its claws. um but even a lot of those sort of indie rock industry players are gone now. There's not much indie rock press, there's not much indie rock labels.
Ugh.
It's almost like an impossible task to like kind of do that, unless there's like a wealthy person that just kind of like wants to throw their money away like for fun. And I think that's really what a
Yep.
lot a lot of them are, to be, if we're just all being honest with ourselves, which is also like not so different than how art has been for hundreds of years, where
Yep.
there's like great patrons that come in and like sponsor stuff just because they like it, and it makes them feel good and part of their community, or closer to creative people, or whatever reason they may have.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. So I want to be conscious of time, but I want to kind of wrap up this first piece about talking about the band and the actual kind of just day to day working aspects of being in, running, founding, promoting a indie rock band. Can you catch us up, because the current iteration of your band is very different from what you started with, right? You
Hmm.
and Jackie are the only original members left,
That's right.
right?
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about how what you said earlier. Bands are about chemistry. Good bands have good
Hmm.
chemistry, and that can be very tenuous. It can be really easily broken and lost. There are countless stories, right, about bands that have just imploded because of whatever reason. And so to be able to keep this going for 25 years through these different iterations, through losing members, gaining members, and still maintain the quality of the music and the performance. How did that I mean, is that something that you have a philosophy around? Is it a conscious thing, or are you just one adaptable motherfucker? Like you're just like, well, we're just gonna
Yeah.
we're just gonna take it as it comes, and we're gonna make it work.
I think there are some consistent philosophies. Jack and I are pretty team-oriented people,
Hmm.
and we like working in small teams, and compromise, I think, comes pretty easy for us.
Mm.
Like, we're not very fussy individualists as creatives, and I think that can cultivate a good band vibe. It doesn't always, of course, but a vibe where people can express themselves and feel impersonally invested, even if it maybe not have, maybe it wasn't their band of 25 years or something, but it's a place where they feel like they can be a true part of the team, or like the culture of it. Like, we all work together on the band very rigorously every week. So in a normal week at home, not on tour, we'll meet Monday and Tuesday in the studio, Lake Travis. We've had this little studio for nearly 15 years in a little bungalow. And we'll try to get a song going, like tracked with most of the band in the studio. Wednesday, it'll be like Mia, Jackie, and we have an intern now that just started working for us. They'll have a marketing meeting. Thursday, we'll have a meeting with our booking agent. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we'll all be doing different tasks. Like, I'll be mixing the stuff that we did Monday, Tuesday, or doing overdubs or something like that. And other folks will be working on tour marketing, or PR, or keeping the online store going, or doing merch inventory, or also I send out all of our merch. So we kind of work like full time all week. We usually kind of take the weekend off unless we're playing a show, like unless we're doing regional shows or something, and those would be like Friday, Saturday. But pretty much the whole band is like working a lot for the band all the time, and that we're really lucky for, because it pays like a part-time job that is a full-time job. And it's just amazing to have a band this good with financial opportunities, as sometimes limited as they are. It's much easier to make money out on the road, but there's only so much time in the year that we can like really do that and be away from families and what have you anymore. So we just kind of strike a balance.
Sure. I mean, I think that's incredible. And, I think I've said this many times, maybe not directly to you, but I have a lot of respect for your band because every single member, at least right now, is just amazing. Like there's a lot of talent in this band. Every single person has mad skills, right? And so
Yeah,
getting you
it's
all
true.
together and having that level of commitment from all the players is really, you are really lucky for that, right? I mean, you are
Truly.
aligned artistically, and that's a best case scenario.
Truly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's a spiritual deal going on
Mhm.
with all of us as well, with each other, where we love playing together, we love being together, we love working on a great project together. We all worked on our last record together, and Emergency Leisure, and we released it together. We toured on it together. So we're just developing a set of experiences as this group of five people as a team, that that really just keeps improving. Like the record we're working on right now, which we're about 10 songs into, is even more collaborative than the previous one, and it's even easier. Really, it's just the songs kind of like come out with minimal labor.
Wow.
So it feels very like joyful, I guess. It's like a feels a lot like someone will just jam a part or a chord progression. Yeah, like Mia will have a beautiful chord progression, and then someone will just Jack will start doing a bass groove, and then like 2 hours just pass, like
Wow.
in a state like where we're barely even conscious. Like I actually get to step away from my phone and the New York Times and text messages and all that kind of stuff for a moment, and it's just a song pops out, and it's been better than ever, really.
Yeah, this is a perfect segue because my next kind of line of questions was going to be around like your creative process and like your, I don't want to say philosophy because I don't think this is a thing that we always or even most of the time think about. I don't think it's an intellectual exercise at all. I think it's very spiritual, and it's really hard to talk about being creative and that creative process without sounding a little woo or kooky, but it is a little
Hmm.
woo and kooky, right? Like it's
Yeah.
like And I've talked to all kinds of creative people, and everyone sort of has their way of describing it. Everyone has their own sort of little, mental images of what kind of stuff is going down in the ether when they get these amazing
Hmm.
opportunities to get into flow.
Sure.
As an individual musician yourself, and then as part of this band, do you feel like that's something that you can reliably tap into, or do you feel like it's a complete surprise and a gift every time? Like just wow, out of nowhere.
I think if I sit down with an instrument and I give myself time to create, like at least it doesn't even have to be an hour. It could be sometimes less, but sometimes a couple hours. I'll get something, and it could be just a set of chords, or it could be the entire song, but I'll get something out of it. I do go through periods where I don't do that as much, when I'm working on other tasks. Like right now, I'm mixing a lot,
Mhm.
and I don't write a lot when I mix because they're really, really different. And I have to kind of get into an intense state of concentration in both for both ways. But writing, I'll usually kind of create a little fun setup for myself. I'll get a drum machine and I'll have an acoustic guitar and a keyboard and a microphone. And sometimes I'll start with like a chord progression that I find just to be emotionally stirring, and that's the part that's just the woo woo,
Uh-huh.
that's the part that's just me and my flavor, like what I like, what I think sounds good and sounds expressive and is maybe conveying a feeling I have. And I'll either start there, or sometimes I'll just start with a beat that will just make me feel good, and then I'll like just find ways of putting them together, different tempos, different feels. I'll experiment with just how to play a progression, a chord progression in different ways. Like sometimes I'll try to write like a fast version of a song or a slow version of a song or a dance version of a song,
Mhm.
and try to find where like the soul of the song to me lives, which is maybe more of the slightly more of a producer side of the songwriting. A lot of things have become songwriting that used to be, it was like lyrics and
Yep.
chords. And since I'm a contemporary music listener and I love all kinds of music, I'm glad that like we can kind of accept that there's more things that are that are songwriting than just lyrics and chords. Like I that would not convey the creative richness of hip hop or something, for example. So my own songwriting process would be like just having a couple instruments that are like vibey to me and personal, and then I'll just spend a little bit of time and kind of like in play really to find the emotional resonance that I'm looking for.
Yeah. I'm so glad you went this way because I've thought about this. So I grew up, I was born in the 70s, mid 70s. So 70s, 80s, early 90s when these, popular music was just so lush. Like the production on some of these tracks, you listen to the Commodores, you listen to like these
Mm.
amazing bands, and they've got just layers and layers of sound, and they've got a gazillion musicians on stage with them and a horn section. Like I love big sound and I love layered sound.
Hmm.
Like Peter Gabriel, I feel when I listen to his music, I think he is, when he's writing songs, he is thinking about not just the music but being in the studio and what he's going to do with it, like how it's going,
Hmm.
like what he can do with production as an art form on top of the actual music, as you were just saying. Is that something that you are
Hmm.
actively doing, or do you just do the music and then you go in and it's a completely separate process?
uh, I think spending so much time writing in the recording studio, writing in a recording environment, I'm always thinking about the recorded outcome.
Hmm.
I don't think I can really separate like producer brain out from my workflow. It's partially why I like working with a drum machine instead of just strumming around on a guitar by myself, which I do sometimes. But like if but I do that more if I'm like camping or on like a vacation or trip or retreat or something like that. If I'm like writing at home, I like to have a few instruments around so I can kind of start mocking up the feeling of what the arrangement sounds like. And so I start heading in the direction of stuff that I know will come later, and having a little bit of a sketch. Sometimes I keep these initial parts, like initial drum machine, acoustic guitar, keyboard, what have you, or sometimes I'll like mute them in a final mix. But they usually kind of form like the skeleton of a song, or like the blueprint.
I've listened to Emergency Leisure way too many times, like a lot of times. And as I've listened to it, I'm like, I wonder if they slash you as a producer, when you're writing these songs, are you thinking about that? And let me tell you, let me just tell you this story,
Mhm.
because this is my podcast, and I'm taking a point of privilege, because you rarely get to tell artists to their face about why their art is important to you. And
Sure.
so, and then after that, I know a little bit about how Emergency Leisure came to be, but I would love to have you finish us off with that story. So in, God, what year is it? 2023, I had like a major breakdown. Like I just lost everything,
Hmm.
like just complete meltdown. You know, just your average middle life crisis, dealing with undealt with trauma,
Hmm.
past abuses, just awful. I
Hmm.
lost my job. Like it was just bad. Crash and fucking burn. And
So.
I was just like, I don't think I can do anything anymore. So I spent like the first few months of that year just kind of staring out the window and being like, I don't know what to do with myself, and I don't want to do anything. I am depleted. And that, I think it was late in that spring or early in that summer, I saw the announcement that you guys were putting out this album and that you were going to call it Emergency
Hmm.
Leisure. And I had only just learned about you guys. My friend Sonia Hernandez, she took me
Hmm.
to, the first time I ever saw you was at the Parish, and it was you were launching the Sheriff single
Okay. Yeah.
with Riders Against the
Yeah.
Storm,
That's right.
right? And I was just like, and we have a text group for the Cosmic Clash, and people were like, "Have you've never seen them? You gotta go, you gotta go." And Sonia's like, "Yeah, come on." And I'm like, "All right, fine, I'll go." And so I went, and I was just like, "Holy fuck!" Like you guys were on fire. It was unbelievable. I was like, "Holy shit, this is my new favorite band." Fast forward, and when I heard that the name of this album was Emergency Leisure, I was like, oh God, it's a sign. This is like perfect for me. I need this. I am desperate for Emergency Leisure. So
Yeah.
they asked me if I would, when the album came out later in the fall, if the Cosmic Clash asked me if I would review it. And so I was listening to all the singles, and finally it came out. But I spent that whole summer listening to these songs. And every Friday
Sure.
I went to
Yeah.
Barton Springs, and it became a ritual. I would go to Barton Springs, I would listen to the entire album, and I still do it every single Friday. Like during the summer, I listen to this album. It's like my thing. And it became a part of like how I coped with all this period in my life. And it was so like, and I mean that sounds trite, but it's not. It was just such a perfect collection of songs. All of the songs on that album spoke to me in some way or another, where I was like, damn, this is exactly what I need right now. I feel this. And, like for whatever reason, it has so much meaning for me. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you for
Mm.
it, because I have it on vinyl. I love it. I still listen to it all the time. I will probably always listen to it. It is so well made, and not just, as you said, musically, like it is produced well. Like every aspect of that album is amazing. And I want you to please convey to the rest of the band how much I appreciate it. Cause I think it's fucking phenomenal. And maybe more importantly than just being good music, it helped with my healing. And that sounds super cheesy,
Mhm.
but it's not. It's so important. So how did that album come to be? Because Emergency Leisure, we got the shit kicked. We're still getting the shit kicked out of us, but the pandemic came, everybody just sort of lost it. And then, I know there was a period there where the band, your original members kind of transitioned out. You had to kind of reimagine it from scratch. And then this was sort of like the
Mhm.
first album that you made after that evolution?
Yeah. Yeah. So 2019, we did our last big Bright Light tour in support of Jude Volume 2. It was our fourth album. And then the start of 2020, actually just right after that tour, the band was at a pretty fractured point, pretty exhausted, not getting along well, not really creating. It was just uncomfortable, not particularly hostile or something, but just it's time for some of us to like go in different places. So Jack and I got an opportunity at first to just look at ourselves and ask ourselves like what we really wanted to be doing, and we kind of made some demos. Maybe I think it was that summer, like just for fun, because we would just get together and at the studio and like work on some music and hang out. At some point, we're like, let's ask our buddy Zach to play drums. Zach Catanzaro came on right away. We barely had any opportunity to like be a band together because it was just going to be a trio for just a moment. We maybe played 3 or 4 shows or something before the pandemic really hit. Jack and I were actually together when South by canceled. We were flying back from LA where we had just like met with all of our old LA team, like our sync licensing people. It's like all these relationships that we barely even have anymore because the industry was just so thoroughly just sloshed around, entirely shifted and reborn during that period. But it kind of allowed Jack and I and Zach to start kind of like working on some music together. It's like we'd get together like Mondays and Tuesdays and kind of like live the pod life or something. Like our basically our families would just get together with their family and stuff.
The pod life.
Um, it's like, I don't know.
I
Like
know.
there's so many ways that people were just trying to figure out how to live in the world, and we mostly kind of we canceled all of our shows and kind of stopped playing and stuff, but we kept meeting with each other for like studio time, and we started just getting some demos. At that point, I think there was a time where we were getting some demos, and we did have the opportunity to start playing a few shows again as like some of the initial like the vaccine wave and stuff rolled out, and we played an 11th anniversary show for our first album. We were going to have a 10th anniversary, but obviously the 10th anniversary was 2020 itself, for the record. So we had an anniversary party for the first album, and we desperately needed a keyboard player to do the first album because there's important keyboard parts all throughout the thing, like that lead even parts of the songs. So I just started seeing a dear friend of mine, Mia Carruthers. We had been friends as musicians and creatives, label mates at one time, and even at the risk of sounding ridiculous to my band, it was kind of like, hey, what about Mia? People in bands are naturally suspicious of working with couples for good reason. Like everybody knows, like Fleetwood Mac and like all stories like that of like the toxic quality of having like a relationship in a band or something. So there was maybe like a little wariness, but we ultimately like jammed and had a great time, and the band had an instant connection with Mia, and Mia killed that show and went on to just join the band full time. Shortly after that, we found Juan Alfredo Rios, the Cheeto Machine, and he joined up with us. So then we had 5 people working on the band, and it was a goal of Jack and I to make more of a dance-oriented record with really lush arrangements, full percussion, walls of background vocals, heavy instrumentation, and this band made that vision so much more possible, so much easier, so much more beautiful and expressive. For us, we kind of wanted to make a record that sounded like 25 people, session musicians in like 1979 or something. And we had 5 of us that could really bring like a ensemble live dance music vision to life. And they just the whole 5 piece of the group helped close that album cycle. I mean, there might have been like demos that Jack and I started with like a drum machine and a guitar or something, or demos that like one of us wrote because Zach has the same set of studio and songwriting skills, and sometimes we'll just bring whole songs into for the band. demoed out and sounding amazing just from the jump. So there were some things that started with just like the two of us, but ended with with everyone in the band kind of making this ensemble vision happen.
Yeah. I mean, that's very clear to me. And Mia's vocals add this incredible depth. Alfredo's playing is so good. Like it really is. I've actually thought this, but I didn't want to say it because people sometimes get offended when you make comparisons. But I actually had this thought that your band does remind me of Fleetwood Mac in that, maybe not this, maybe music isn't the same style, but you have these like individually, each musician is a star. And then you put them all together and then you're
Mm.
just like, whoa, what a sound. And that's where I feel you guys are right now. Like that's what I get from Emergency Leisure. I cannot wait until your next album. When is it coming out?
Not in the far off future. We're about 10 songs in. We'll probably write a few more. We don't write a lot of songs that we don't release or like use in some capacity, just because we like kind of work really hard on every studio creation we do. And it's almost impossible for five deeply invested creative people to spend so much time on on like a song that just like sucks. So it's like most of them like we love, and we like want to share. So we'll probably just write a few more, and I've already got kind of most of it like mixed and stuff. So we're maybe this year, maybe early next year. Usually, like from the end of the recording, these days, like most people will tell you, there's always like the best practices and stuff like constantly change, right? So, but right now it's like release as many singles as possible. They're like, if you can do four, if you can do five, it's like great. So, you space those out kind of 6 weeks at a time, and it's usually about 6 months or a little less to get vinyl. So from the point where you're like finished with the recording, it is kind of like shocking sometimes how like time can just like fly by before it's actually available for people to listen to. But we're like very close. All that to say.
Excellent. Well, this has been such a pleasure. I could talk to you for a very, very long time, and I appreciate you sticking with me through our technical difficulties and all of our rescheduling shenanigans. But Curtis, you're great. You're great. I want you to know that you're great. You probably know, but I want you to know that I think
Thank
you're
you very
great.
much.
Yeah, and
I
your band
appreciate the
is great.
support today.
Yeah. No, I'm really thrilled to have had this opportunity to talk to you. And
Same.
yeah, it's not often that you get to talk to people that you just admire. So it's a treat. Thank you for being here
And
today.
I find it just therapeutic to think about all of these processes and some of the experiences we've all had. So it's a gift to have this conversation with you and to talk about the creative life, and which is one that we're all so deeply invested in, and it brings richness to our life if we're not even particularly creative, because most of us like music or watch a TV show or something, and it's a big deal of just how we're human. And thanks for having me too.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and put some links in the show notes to y'all's
Hmm.
website and, places where people can find you. And you
Hmm.
have some tour dates coming up. So, and your social media. I hope everybody goes out and follows the Bright Light Social Hour. Trust me, just trust me. I have never steered you wrong before.